Well, 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 look who it is. It's you, here with me. Some of you just got done taking classes with me a couple of weeks ago, and now you've rushed right back into the breach to subject yourself to more of my torture. I don't know what you're thinking. Hey, what I want to do here is go over a course, what we're going to do, how we're going to do it, and things you need to know so that you not only finish the course successfully, but hopefully have some good experiences along the way. If you want to have kind of a paper copy of everything I'm going to go over here, you can get one by going to the Canvas page, clicking that syllabus link. That'll bring up the syllabus so that if at some point you want to remind yourself, how are we graded again? I remember he said the grading system is really kooky, because it is. How does that work again? You can go right back into your syllabus and find that information instead of having to rewatch a video. All right? So, what's Philosophy 10 all about? It is about the big questions, okay? Big questions like, what's real? What exists? And we're going to be asking and answering these big questions in hopefully ways that are actually relevant. The goal is not for us to just wax philosophic about these things, but to think about them seriously, right? Like, I know burritos exist, and I know cars exist, and students exist. But does free will exist? Do I actually have the ability to make the choices that I feel like I'm freely making? Do ideas exist as anything other than just synapses firing in our heads? Like, do ideas exist outside of our minds, outside of our brains? Do things like the multiplication tables exist and as a part of reality? Or is that just something we made up, that human beings made up because it's useful? What's reality like? Is the world, quote unquote, out there roughly similar to the way that I perceive it in here? Is there more reason to think that I'm having more of a matrixy like type experience where reality is not what it appears to be? And how do I know that I know what I know? Right? So there's things I believe, and then there's things that I put into a different category. These are not just beliefs I have. This is something I actually know. Well, how do I know that what I claim to know is something I actually know? What justifies me saying that this is not just a belief I have, this is knowledge I have? Which really raises the question, well, what is this thing called knowledge anyway? Knowledge. No, it's knowledge. What is this thing called knowledge? How do we differentiate knowledge from belief? And what's the right thing to do? How should I live? I want to be a good person. What does that mean? When I confront moral dilemmas and I have to make a decision that's a difficult one, what are the values that I should be relying on? What do I stand for? Okay, so these are some of the big questions we're going to be exploring. Now, just up front, keep in mind, our exploration of these questions is not going to be like, it might be on a Friday night when everybody's sitting around smoking doobies and waxing philosophic about, whether or not the universe is really just some cosmic burrito that we're all ingredients of. It's not like that. And it's also not that I'm just going to start handing you a bunch of answers. I don't have the answers. I only have my answers. But in addition to my answers, I also have knowledge of the answers that other people much smarter than me have generated over the last couple of thousand years. I'm a part of Western civilization. By virtue of you taking this course, you are engaged with Western civilization. And there is a nice couple of 1,000-year history of thinking about these big questions. And if we operate from the assumption that we might not be the first person in 2,500 years to figure out the answers, maybe we should explore the answers that other people have generated before us. Okay? So that's the goal here, is for us to think about these big questions and look at the answers that some really smart people have generated over time and consider them and ask ourselves, do these answers that I'm reading here, do they resonate with me? Is this something that I think is worth embracing in my own life, for me? All right, so how are we going to do this work? It's going to begin each week with a weekly announcement for me. It'll pop right into your Canvas, and it'll give you an alert, say like, hey, the dude sent you a video announcement, and that's going to be about a 5-minute video of me going over the week's work and explaining to you, this is what we're doing this week, this is what you want to be mindful of, don't get sidetracked by this. So watch those weekly videos. I'll try to keep them down to about 5 minutes or so, but I'll also try to make sure that they're helpful to you so that they point out things that you want to be keeping in mind as you do your work. What is that work? It's thought primers. A lot of it is thought primers. So you're going to have 2 thought primers each week, and all these are opportunities for you to engage in some questions related to the big questions before you do any reading, before you do, participate in any lectures or any other discussion. You're just kind of priming your thinking by responding to some questions from me. They're no more than 2 pages, double spaced each. And keep this in mind, because you're going not just because you're going to have a quiz question on this, and what I'm about to say is the answer to that quiz question, but also keep this in mind because it's super important. You have 2 thought primers due a week, and for every week except for the first week, those thought primers are going to be due on Thursday night and on Sunday night, both at 11:59 p.m. So your first thought primer of the week is due on Thursday night, and then your second thought primer of the week is due on Sunday night, okay? Except for the very first week, this week, okay? So officially the course didn't start until May 31st, which is Tuesday. I'm gonna guess you're here a little earlier than that because I'm gonna make this course available to you much earlier on so you can kind of take a look at it. But for the very first week, you will not have thought primers due on Thursday and Sunday. You will have 2 thought primers, but they're both due by Sunday. So you can turn them in staggered or at that same time. I just didn't want to force you to try to get something turned in 2 days, all right? So every week, except for the first week of this course, you have 2 thought primers, and one is due on Thursday at 11:59, and one is due on Sunday at 11:59. You're also going to have quizzes, and they're kind of embedded into the thought primer. I'm going to show you that here in a second. The quizzes are multiple choice, and they are based on either lectures you've been watching or reading you've been doing. They're multiple choice. They're simple. They don't have a lot of questions in them, and you'll get 2 attempts and unlimited time on these quizzes. So you take the quiz, then you can go back in, see which questions you answered correctly, which ones you didn't answer correctly, and then you can go back in and retake that same quiz, the same questions in the same order, and you just want to make sure that you mark the questions you got right the first time with the same answer, and don't mark the questions with the same answer if you got it wrong the first time. And then finally, we're going to do 2 what are called philosophic inquiries. They're not essays. They are simply opportunities for you to address some questions that we will have been exploring for some time before you sit down to think about these things. And it's important for you to remember, and I will remind you of this, I don't care what you think. What you think is not terribly interesting to me. How you got to the conclusions that you've gotten to is very interesting to me. I'm interested in how you thought your way to a conclusion. Okay, not terribly interested in the conclusion. It's the thinking process that got you there. And I'm saying this because I never want you to feel like you have to agree with me. If you always agree with me, or you think you have to parrot back to me what I've said is what I think, that's really boring. Okay, so I like when you take risks and try ideas out, and I really like when they're ideas that are different from the ones that I hold, because then that's a good experience for me. I get something out of it. I don't just get a mini me who's parroting back to me what I think. I get somebody who's thinking about things and maybe thinking about them differently. All right, no mandatory Zoom sessions. We're never going to have scheduled synchronous class meetings. I can set up meetings with you individually or small groups. We can sit around and chat about ideas that you're thinking about and things that you're working on. But no mandatory Zoom meetings where you have to be available at a particular day at a particular time. All right, so in the next video, I'm going to just kind of give you a glimpse at how our course is, how your work is structured, okay? So, and that's going to take place in modules. That's where it's at for us. So if you're familiar with Canvas, hopefully you're familiar with modules, and that's where we're going to kind of live for this course, okay? So in the next video, I'll show you what that looks like.